He was just a tiny kitten when Eddie first climbed onto my shoulder and sat there as if he had already decided that was his favorite place. Even then, I could see something different in him. He wasn't interested in simply staying inside. He wanted to discover the world. At first, I thought Eddie would grow up like any normal house cat. He could sleep beside the window, chase insects, and curl up somewhere warm. But whenever I opened the door, Eddie wanted to follow. He watched birds through the window and seemed fascinated by everything outside. Eventually, I started thinking, what if Eddie could experience the mountains with me? So, I decided to try. For our first hike, I brought a carrier, harness, and leash. I wasn't sure how Eddie would react, but the moment we stepped onto the trail, he became completely fascinated. He listened to every sound, smelled the trees, watched the leaves moving in the wind, and carefully investigated everything around him. It was like he had discovered an entirely new world. When we stopped to rest, Eddie climbed onto my shoulder again and looked across the mountains like a tiny explorer. That's when I knew. He loved being there. After that, our adventures became part of our routine. We explored forest trails, climbed toward viewpoints, walked beside rivers, and spent time in quiet meadows. Eddie never seemed bothered by the unfamiliar surroundings. He simply followed along, explored at his own pace, and enjoyed whatever came next. One night, we decided to sleep in a tent. I was nervous because I didn't know how Eddie would react to the darkness and strange sounds around us, but he surprised me once again. He curled up beside me, pressed his little face against my shoulder, and fell asleep. He was completely peaceful. That moment showed me just how much Eddie trusted me. He didn't need to understand everything around him. He simply knew he was safe because we were together. Eddie also seemed incredibly brave. The wind didn't scare him. The sound of branches breaking somewhere in the forest didn't stop him. Even high mountain viewpoints made him more curious than nervous. Sometimes he would sit quietly on a rock and stare into the distance. I would sit beside him, and for a few minutes, we would simply watch the world together. No words were necessary. There were also moments when Eddie seemed to choose where we should go. He would suddenly turn down a trail, walk a little farther, and then look back at me. It was almost like he was saying, "Come on, this way." And strangely enough, he often led me toward beautiful places. A small stream, a peaceful meadow, a field filled with flowers. It was as if Eddie had his own compass. One day, we discovered a huge field of blueberries. I stopped to pick some, and Eddie immediately became interested in the bushes. He walked between them, sniffed around, and played like he had discovered a brand new playground. I watched him and realized that this was one of those simple moments I would remember forever. Nothing dramatic happened, we were just together, but somehow it felt perfect. People on the trail sometimes stop when they see Eddie. They look surprised and ask, "Is that a cat?" I smile and tell them, yes, he's my cat, and he loves hiking. Some people ask how I trained him. The answer is patience and trust. I never forced Eddie to explore new places. I introduced him to new places slowly and watched his reactions carefully. If he seemed uncomfortable, we stopped. If he wanted to continue, we continued. Over time, he learned that being outside with me was safe, and I learned to trust him too. Today, Eddie is much more than my pet. He's my friend, he's my hiking partner, and sometimes he's even my guide. Because of him, I notice details that I might have ignored before. The sound of a river, flowers growing beside a trail, birds moving through the trees, the quiet feeling of standing on a mountain and looking across the horizon. Eddie taught me that adventure isn't always about reaching the highest peak. Sometimes the best part is simply being there, walking together, resting beside a river, watching the sunset, or having a cat peacefully sitting on your shoulder while the world stretches out in front of you. I don't know how many trails we still have ahead of us, but I know there are more mountains, more rivers, and more beautiful places waiting to be discovered. And wherever the next trail takes us, I know Eddie will be beside me. Because the greatest adventures aren't always about where you go, they're about who you share the journey with. For me, that companion will always be Eddie. If Eddie's story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more touching and inspiring animal stories.